So what I wanted to make this video about is about the California laws on service dogs, particularly relating to licensing and the service dog tags. There people have questions all the time. I've spent a lot of time answering the questions in this group or that group. So I thought I'd make a video kind of going over what I usually write. Um, it can make it easier. The next time somebody asks, just post a link to the video and, they can get the info they need. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, I need to give you some background. Um, Way back when, before the ADA was passed, California made a law pertaining to the service dog tags. And after I'm done telling you this, I will show you some of the documents. I do believe I have them scanned and on my computer. They made a law about the service dog tags. Now, what this law said was the Department of Food and Agriculture was going to make these tags. They had to be a particular shape. They had to be a particular size. They spelled out all the particulars on this tag. Well, right after that, the ADA was passed, which nullified these tags for fully trained service dogs. So the tags were never made. They were supposed to be made by the state of California and distributed out to the animal control departments. When the state did not do that, some animal control departments kind of fudged it and made up their own, got their own made up, which do not comply with the law. Regarding the size and shape and color and all of that. So they just made their own. So as a result, going into the, first 10 years of the ADA, some counties didn't have tags. In fact, some counties may still not have tags. But that is how the tag law came to be, and how some counties don't even provide them. Even the counties that do provide them, all the ones I've seen, they're not in compliance with the law. So essentially, legally speaking, we're complete legalities here. The tag does not exist legally because the Department of Food and Ag never made them and distributed them out. So technically, they do not exist. So technically, that part in the law where you have to have the service dog tag, technically that's not even legal because you cannot legally get what legally does not exist. Just for the background, because everybody needs to understand that as the background to this stuff going forward. So here's the letter I got eons ago when I inquired about the tag, way long time ago. And it's from the Guide Dog Board. That was the logical place to go because they're the one that deal with the guide dogs and the service dog matters. They administer the service dog payment, so I had decided to ask them about it because nobody seemed to know anything. It was in the law, but people were playing games about giving it. Nobody seemed to know anything, so I asked these people. Anyway, let me read it. In response to your inquiry about a service dog or assistance dog identification tag, the bad news is that one does not as yet exist. The California legislature passed an enabling bill, SB 1240, that provided for the California Department of Food and Agriculture to create specifications and authorize an identification tag to be issued by county clerks, animal control departments, or other agencies as authorized by Chapter 3.5, commencing with Section 3850. Section 3850 is the law about giving out these tags, the requirements for giving out these tags. Of Division 14 of the Food and Agricultural Code. A copy of these specifications is enclosed. Your local agency may or may not have issued such tags. If they have not, none are available. The state of California issues no tags for such purpose, because I'd asked them, do we get it from the state? Where do we get these tags? If you need or wish further clarification, the State Board of Guide Dogs for the Blind has no jurisdiction over service dogs other than guide dogs for the blind, but I will be happy to help with available information. He was a really nice guy. Sincerely, Harry L. Thomas, Executive Officer. So this is the letter that they sent me about my inquiry. Now, next, let's get to the actual specifications that were sent with this letter. Okay, real quick. This is the cover letter. The exact stuff was sent to them. This is the cover letter when it was sent to the guide dog board. You know, let it sit there for a minute and you can see, you can read it. Just some essential information. Okay, here is the specifications. You know, if you have a California service dog tag and it does not meet these specifications, technically, it's not legal. Let's look at the specifications. They got to be numbered in sequence. They have to be 1 inch by 1.5 inch. It has to have the shape of the state of California, and the color has to be blue or gold. Those are the specifications for the tag that was to be issued. So again, if your service dog tag does not meet those specifications, technically, it's not a legal tag. And it's not a legal tag because legal tags do not exist. So that is the specifications of the tag. And the reason I felt the need to make this point is because people need to understand when they're going to their city or their county to get this tag and they're fighting with the city or the county to get this tag, they need to understand what they're fighting to get legally doesn't exist. And they're making a good faith effort is what I'd call it. They are making a good faith effort to comply with what is available, even though the legal tag is not available. You know, if a legal, you know, or city thing came up where you were dealing with them and they're trying to get you in trouble, the fact that this tag does not exist legally could be used to help you. Just saying. So it's kind of, the history is kind of important. All right, we're going to move to what the law 3850 says about the tag, and then we'll discuss the issues and the problems. All right, here's Food and Ag Code 3850. Let's go through it real quick. It's pretty short. We'll go through it really quick. These are the requirements to get a service dog tag. And they're free because the state of California cannot charge you a fee for having a service dog. So we'll talk about that a little more later. We'll get to that later. But here's what this chapter says. The Animal Control Department shall endorse or sign off upon the application for an assistance dog identification tag, the number of the identification tag issued. As used in this chapter, assistance dogs are dogs specially trained as guide dogs, signal dogs, or service dogs. All applications that have been endorsed shall be kept on file in the office of the Animal Control Department and shall be open to public inspection. And I may use that someday, that public inspection thing. Whenever a person applies for an assistance dog identification tag, the person shall sign an affidavit stating as follows. And blah, blah, blah. You sign this penalty under penalty of perjury that you're not faking it, basically. Upon the death or retirement of an assistance dog, the owner or person in possession of the assistance dog identification tag shall immediately return the tag to the Animal Control Department that issued the tag. So let's go to the next one. All right, next. Um, 3851. The owners of assistance dogs shall comply with all state and local ordinances regarding health and licensure requirements for dogs. So what that means is what everybody else has to do for their pets to get the license, we also have to do. We have to get the rabies. You know, in California, I believe that's the only requirement to license your dog is that it has the rabies. So we also have to have the rabies. And that's all we have to do. To get this service dog tag, we have to fill out the statement under penalty of perjury, and usually they pair that with the license information, your name and address, the dog's name, description, blah, 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 blah. And then on the bottom or on the back or attached, they have the statement under penalty of perjury. That's all we have to do to get the tag. Nothing extra, nothing else. All right. So now we can discuss the issues at hand, understanding these, basic things. Okay, so here's the deal. People go to get the assistance dog tags, and many, many, many animal control departments, including my own, are adding on extra requirements in an attempt to dissuade you, to interfere with you getting the service dog tag. In my county, they put a training requirement. The dog has to be into task training before it can go out in public. I wasn't going to go for that. That's not detailed in 3850. That isn't part of the requirement to get the tag. Yet they're trying to force it on me. So they want you to check that your dog has reached that level. I refuse to check it because I start my puppies the minute I get them at 8 weeks old. In a very controlled and careful way. I start exposing them to stores and public places. It might be once a week, twice a week, maybe, for just a couple of minutes each time. I find a value in the early exposure. So this requirement would interfere with my my training program, and I wasn't going to have it. So I just refused to check. Oh, and I could tell you stories. We went rounds, me and animal control. Some animal controls are threatening to tell DMV. F them. F them. Others are wanting to see doctor's letters. That's not in the requirements to get the tag. Anything that is beyond what we just read as a requirement to get the tag is contrary to law. So, you know how cops are. They'll lie to you. They'll play games with you. They'll play head games with you. Now, this depends on how big a balls somebody has. You know, this is going to be a bit of a confrontation. Not a physical one, but it's going to be, by mail at least. It's going to be a tussle with whatever animal control. What I did, anything on the application that wasn't in line with what the law says, I refused. They wanted me to list all the tasks that my dog was going to be trained to do. And I said, no. For one thing, my task list would require me to fill the entire space they provided, plus attach an extra sheet of paper. Second, I have a proposed task list, and from dog to dog, it generally works. But a couple of, different things, from dog to dog, one dog might be really good at a proposed task, and another dog kind of sucks in that task, but does a different task really well. So I may drop a task or two that I had hoped to do with the dog. So then I put down these tasks, and down the line, they find out my dog doesn't do that task, wasn't trained for that task. It can be a problem. So I refuse. I put on the application 2 tasks because the law for service dogs, the ADA, says work or perform tasks, plural. So I put 2 tasks that I knew for a fact was going to be no problem to train the dog. That they're standard. Every dog of mine gets them. There's never a problem. I put the 2 tasks down. They did not like that. On the phone, I was told it was insufficient. And I said, why is that? Well, we need more tasks. You're vague about the tasks. What their problem was is that the tasks I listed did not indicate what my disability was. I purposely withheld the tasks that positively identify what my disability is, and they didn't like that because they didn't like me. I've gone rounds with these guys since I moved into this county. They didn't like me. So they wanted to make it difficult. And I just said, well, you know what? You don't get to choose if you think it's sufficient. You don't get to choose if you think that it applies to my disability. The only way you're going to get to choose is if you want to take me to court. I dare you, do it. Otherwise, you don't get to decide that it doesn't apply to my disability and it's not valid. I went rounds with these people for months. Basically, I refused to comply. I sent in the paperwork with the affidavit signed, all the information, address, name, address, description of dog, all of that. That was all filled in, just declining the parts that weren't in line with the law. What ended up happening is they didn't like that, so they just failed to send me the tags and didn't even tell me. But I knew this was because from the previous interactions we'd had, I knew this was going to go down this way. So when they refused to send me the tag, it didn't come in a reasonable time. I called in and I put them on speakerphone and I had a recorder going. And I said, I haven't seen the tag. What's the deal? And that's when we had the whole conversation that the tasks I provided were insufficient. I didn't check the trained up to the certain level box, blah, 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 blah. So I explained to her that it is an invasion of my privacy to require all tasks, and I wasn't going to do it. I told her that since the law said work or perform tasks, plural, that putting 2 tasks ought to be sufficient enough to show my intention to meet the law. And on the phone, she agreed with me. She argued with me about the minimum training. And said she was going to forward it on to the director. Yeah, that wasn't going to have any effect either. So, I didn't hear anything for a long time. This was on Cole, my current service dog. So, what I did, and that's where the previous information is of help. I knew that the tag legally did not exist. So, if I should continue about my business and somebody should make a fuss, I was going to let them drag me into court. And then I would put to the judge that the tag didn't legally exist in the first place. And I was trying to make a good faith effort, and they were not complying with state law. And what can I do? There's nothing I can do to make them comply with state law. So, that's what I did. Cole was, 3-4 months old, about that time. He was even younger. He's probably 3 months old, maybe. I continued on my training. I continued per usual, like I do every service dog. He was going out with me, into public. And I just trucked along and did my thing. Gosh, how did that? Oh, I periodically sent reminder letters. This took us. He didn't get his California service dog tag until he was 1. We went back and forth. I would give them an excessive period of time to comply before hitting them up with another letter. It was to the point, it was 4 or 5 letters at the end of it. They kept refusing me. They kept saying they weren't going to accept it. Finally, I got fed up. I was bored of playing with them. I was bored of it, finally. I wasn't getting anywhere, and I decided, you know what? I want the tag now. So what I ended up doing is I wrote a letter to the Board of Supervisors for the county. Detailed the laws that they were breaking, backed up my case as if I was in a court of law. Sent it off. I sent a copy to animal control. I sent a copy to the board of directors, and I forget. I sent it to one other place. Within a week, I had the tag. They weren't going to screw with me. However, I've asked for reasonable accommodation because they have a dog limit in my county. Well, with myself, my disabled son, and my disabled daughter, it's very hard for us to stay under the dog limit because we do not get rid of retired service dogs. They have a purpose here at home, and they stand by for the most formal of situations because they're the most seasoned. If we had to go to court, I would yank the older dog because they're more seasoned, more perfect behavior. So they serve a purpose even though they don't commonly go out and work. We don't get rid of them. So I asked for reasonable accommodation for that. I told them, I offered them a way to reasonably accommodate me that would not be anything really out of the ordinary. They had to modify a couple of rules to let it happen. I never heard back on the request for reasonable accommodation. They didn't say no, and they didn't say yes. So that's still hanging in the atmosphere. If you have the balls, that's what I would suggest somebody does. You do it in writing, send it by registered mail, so they have to sign for it. And when you send a letter in the mail to them, you have to have a copy for yourself, the exact same what you're sending them. And when they sign the card and the card comes back from them signing it, I take it and I staple it, to the letter it belongs with in the files. Anytime anybody, like a landlord, the county, anybody gives you a problem with the laws with your service dog, you should revert to writing right away, send by registered mail, have your copy, have the card that they signed stapled to it so that you have proof that you sent the letter, what it said, and they signed for it, so you have proof that they got it, because they'll turn around and say that they didn't get it. That's how I nailed them the first time, which is why they don't like me. They didn't want to give the service dog tags when I moved into the county. The director told me that Rottweilers are vicious, out of control animals that should not be service dogs. And then he lost my paperwork for several years. What ended up happening there, I would send them reminders, registered mail, staple the card to it. So I kept those in a file. So about 2 years later, and when I went about my business, no license, I went about my business per normal. 2 years later, my service dog, he got out of my yard. He wandered out of my yard for about 5 minutes over into the next door neighbor's yard. And he did his business. And they were not happy. So they called animal control. So animal control came out, asked me about him wandering out of the yard. I said he's not ever done that here up till now. I didn't know. I had my back turned. I'll make sure it doesn't happen anymore. Then he asked for the licenses for the dogs. I told him I didn't have them. And he said, well, why don't you have them? Why didn't you get them? It's the law. And then I detailed for him that I had applied for the service dog tags when I first moved in, within a week of moving in. And I detailed for him about the conversation with the director and that I had heard nothing since. I had applied to volunteer and I had done the application for the service dog tags. And I told him that the tags were never forthcoming. And there's nothing I can do if animal control isn't going to do its job. So he told me, okay, well, I'm going to write you a ticket for not having the licenses on all the dogs. There was 3 dogs. I'm going to write you a ticket for not having these licenses. And I told him, yeah, that's a good idea. We can go ahead and do that. And he kind of looked at me kind of funny because I was not intimidated. I was not freaking out. None of that. I wasn't even upset, really. And he thought that was weird. He looked at me kind of weird. And then I went on to tell him, we can do that in courts about where I want to be right now. And he's like, huh? And I said, because what I just told you, I can prove every word of it. And then his eyes got kind of big. He said, you can prove it? And I said, oh, yeah, I can prove it. He said, can I see that proof, please? I'm like, sure. So hold on. I went in the house. I got the binder with all the documents in it, brought it out to him. Handed the binder to him, said, here's the documents, here through here. Have at it. So he looked at him for a good long time, and I'm watching him. And I'm laughing inside. I'm watching him. And I'm just kind of rocking back and forth on my heels. Beautiful day today. He finally closes the binder and says, I need to call the office. If you'll give me a few minutes, I need to call the office. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, he was on the radio to the office for, good 5 minutes. I'm going to do my bad habit. You'll have to pardon me. He was on the radio for about 5 minutes. And then he got out of the truck and said, well, I've talked to the office. They lost your paperwork. They're asking if you can please resubmit the paperwork and they'll get it taken care of. Anyway, that's why they didn't like me. It's because I boxed them into a corner before they knew they were caged up. By the time they realized it, they were all caged. There was nothing they could do. Anyway, so that's what I did. I am not recommending or dissuading anybody from doing the same. That is what I did in response to that situation, what they did. I just, okay, whatever. I had proof I had attempted to follow the law. I had done everything I was supposed to do to follow the law. I had proof of it. So if they come at me later trying to say that I didn't do what I was supposed to do, I was fully intending to let them write me a ticket, refuse to comply with the ticket, and force them to drag me into court, because they would have had to drag me into court by then. And in front of a judge is exactly where I want to be, with my proof that I did exactly everything I was supposed to do. And then I could point at animal control and say, they're the ones breaking the law. That would have been fun. So that's what I did. Next, we need to get into the issues about the regular licenses. There's some stuff going on about the regular licenses. Okay, got myself some coffee, some more coffee. I live on cigarettes and coffee. All right, so the issue about the regular everyday old licenses for the dogs in regards to service dogs is this. The state of California has deemed for service dogs in training, for fully trained service dogs, that a person should not be charged an extra charge or fee for access with their service dog. For the fully trained service dogs under Title II of the ADA, and if you go look at that video, it's called Apparent Discrepancy. If you go look at that video, you'll see where Title II talks about state and local governments aren't allowed to charge an extra fee. But being that that's the ADA, it only applies to fully trained dogs. But in my state, California, the state law designates that as well for dogs in training. So what's happening is animal control departments are bullying service dog handlers into paying for the license when they shouldn't. Let me go ahead and I will pull up the relevant state law and show it to you guys. And then we can discuss more after that. All right, I thought I'd start with some general state of California license laws. You might find this really interesting. FYI. I don't know if I want to test it. I might, because I'm ballsy that way, but you may not want to. But I'm going to show it to you anyway. So this is Food and Agricultural Code, Division 14, Regulation and Licensing of Dogs. So this is the state law about dog licensing. And state law reigns supreme over local law, city or county law. It reigns supreme. They cannot make a law in conflict with state law. Another little legal tidbit. So, 3951, collar and tag. It is unlawful for any person to own, harbor, or keep any dog over the age of 4 months, or to permit such a dog which is owned, harbored, or controlled by him to run at large, which is off leash, unless the dog has attached to its neck or leg, and I think they'd take on a harness or, yeah, as long as it's attached to the dog, a substantial collar on which one of the following is fastened. Pick one. On which one of the following is fastened? A metallic tag, which gives the name and post office address of the owner, or a metal license tag, which is issued by the authority of a county, city, and county, or any municipal corporation for the purpose of identifying the dog and designating the owner, otherwise known as your good old everyday city or county dog license. That's what that is. Let me go over that again. Unless the dog has attached to its neck or leg a substantial collar on which one, pick one, of the following is fastened. A regular old tag you get yourself with your name and your address, or a dog license. One of the two. You have to have one of them. Pick one. Tagging dog not described in application. It is unlawful for any person to attach a license tag to the collar of any dog except the dog which is described in the application for such a license tag, if you choose the license tag. Now, here's the kicker. Unlawful killing, injuring, or impounding taken by animal control, except as otherwise provided in this division. It is unlawful for any person to kill, injure, or impound any dog if the owner of the dog has complied with the provisions of this division. So, legally under state law, if you have a tag on your dog with your name and your address, they can't impound your dog. Now, if your dog's doing wrong, running at large, that's a violation of this section. They can come and get your dog. But providing you and your dog are doing everything you're supposed to be doing, and you have put the tag with your name and address on the dog under this particular section, you should not be in trouble. You should not be nailed for not having a license. But they will every day. Every day they'll do that. All right. Here is California Civil Code 54.2. And I don't think I have to go through and read every word. But you can if you want to check on it. That's great. You should always check on what people tell you. You should always do that. All right. A says every individual with a disability has the right to be accompanied by a guide dog, signal dog, or service dog, especially trained for the purpose, in any of the places specified in section 54.1, which is public places and housing, without being required to pay an extra charge or security deposit for the guide dog, signal dog, or service dog. However, the individual shall be liable for any damage done to the premises or facilities by his or her dog. And B is the exact same thing, just for service dogs in training. So that's where it states you can't be required to pay an extra charge or security deposit to have access with your service dog. All right, now we need to check California Penal Code 365.5, section H, right here. Can I highlight it? Yeah, we could highlight it. and I'll read this real quick. This is in the penal code, which is the criminal code. The exercise of rights specified in subdivision A and B, which is access to housing in the public, by any person may not be conditioned upon payment of any extra charge, provided that the person shall be liable for any provable damage done to the premises or facilities by his or her dog. So this is in the criminal code. The exercise of rights specified in subdivisions A and B, which is access to housing in public places, cannot be conditioned upon the payment of any extra charge. Now we're going to get into it a little more. Hold on. Okay, so we see the civil code and the penal code prohibits an extra charge for access for a service dog. Well, a city or county license amounts to an extra charge for you to have access with your service dog or to live in that county. It's a charge. It's an extra charge to have access, which is prohibited. I don't think they're looking at it that way. I don't think they're looking at it at all. But that's essentially what it is. It's a charge for access, which is prohibited by state law, in a nutshell. So these places that are making up all these reasons that they can charge, it's BS. And with my thing that happened before, the regular license was tied up in that. Again, I just refused to comply. I applied. I said I'm exempt from the fee. Now, in my county, the county codes specifically state service dogs don't have to pay for their licenses in my county. But they still gave me problems. He bullied me. I was in his office and he was trying to force me to pay. And I said, I don't think I'm going to do that. No, thank you. Then he offered, well, we can break up the payment for you. And I said, well, that's really kind of you. That would be awesome if I were required to pay, which I'm not. So I'm not going to. Oh, he got hostile. He got mad. Finally, I said, well, the county code even states, what I'm telling you, that I don't have to pay for a license. And he said, it does not say that. And I said, yes, it does. I said, when I get home, I can send you a copy of the law so you can see for yourself. Oh, that pissed him off horrible. Then he didn't want to talk to me anymore. But even if your county doesn't have that specific rule that service dogs don't have to pay for a license, it's stated in the state law. You have good legal ground to refuse to pay the fee. Again, what I would do is I would make application, paper application, fill it out for your regular license. I would submit it. Now you could submit it in person if you wanted or by email or whatever once. If they start giving you grief, immediately switch over to in writing. Do it by mail. I would refuse to comply. I would send them a letter, maybe, every so often, send them a reminder letter reminding them why you're not going to comply. And I would go about my normal, regular business. Now, that previous information about the state licensing laws, that comes into play here. I would refuse to comply. I would have the tag with my name and my address on the dog in compliance with state law. And I would go about my business. If somebody wanted to give me a hard time, drag me into court, once again, Mr. Judge, the state law says this. Here's proof that I tried to get the license. I did what I was supposed to do. And the state law says this is all I have to do. I can't be responsible for what animal control does. I'm not the one breaking the rules. They are. Yeah. And I would go about my business until such time as animal control had interactions with me, found reason to ask me for my license. And then I would say, oh, a ticket. That's good. I in front of a judge is where I want to be. And if they look at you funny, say, well, I'm going to refuse to comply with the ticket. And you're going to have to drag me into court. And in front of a judge is completely where I want to be because I can prove every word I just said. Watch how fast things start to happen. That's what I would do. But yeah, I'm hearing a lot of handlers across California, and the requirements vary widely. Each animal control is off doing its own thing separate from every other animal control. It's not even consistent between counties. So no, you don't have to pay for a license. Are they going to try to make you? Yes, they are. They want the money. Do you have to buy into that? No, you don't. No, you don't. And that's about it. That's the issues with the tags and what I recommend, or at least what I do, how I deal with it, the laws and the paperwork that supports that. Okay. Well, I think we've covered it really well, and it's getting late. It's getting, well, early in the morning now. I do my best work like halfway in the middle of the night. So, I guess I'll see you guys for next vid.